Hi, Emmanuel. I'm Sarah from the upcoming. A real pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Huge congratulations on this film. I absolutely adore it. Maybe people haven't seen the marching band though yet. You can give us a brief introduction. What can people expect when they watch your film?
Bon, le film, c'est la rencontre improbable de deux frères qui ne se connaissaient pas, que le hasard de la vie a séparés et a décidé de deux destins très très différents. Il y en a un qui est rentré dans voilà, un milieu, je dirais, éduqué, bourgeois, et l'autre est resté dans un milieu beaucoup plus populaire. Et voilà, c'est une histoire sur le déterminisme social, sur les chances qui sont données à la naissance ou après, par l'éducation, par la famille, par tout ça. C'est un film qui regarde deux frères, également doués pour la musique, et qui n'ont pas eu le même destin musical.
So the film is about an improbable meeting of two brothers, one who's grown up in a context of art and one who's grown up in a more kind of working class environment, and it's about social determinism, so that it looks at how birth impacts our lives, and how these two brothers are brought together by music.
I understand that, you did discover this marching band where they couldn't read music, but they only played, by ear. How did that experience spark the idea for the film, or at least give you perhaps a way in, a way of telling it that brought music into the story?
La fanfare que j'ai rencontrée, elle est un petit peu emblématique de toutes les fanfares, c'est-à-dire que il y a un mélange de gens d'origine en général assez populaire, mais très diverses, et de niveaux très très différents, de niveaux musicaux très différents. Donc, bon, dedans, vous avez je dirais des musiciens plus avancés que d'autres, certains savent dire de la musique, ceux ne savent pas lire ou très mal la musique, mais c'est pas grave, ils le font à l'oreille. Et l'important, c'est de pouvoir jouer ensemble.
Yeah, so when I met this marching band, they were actually very emblematic of marching bands where they have very different levels of being able to read. So some people were able to read music, some people were playing just by ear, but the important thing was playing all together, and that was emblematic for me.
And, maybe you can talk a little bit more about the role that music plays in the film. I mean, music in a way becomes a character, and there's so many different elements to that, whether it's the classical music, jazz, the brass band, but also the rhythm of the film, how you don't use just a normal soundtrack, but also silences. So there's a certain rhythm to it that has sort of a musical nature. So can you talk us through a bit about that, how that feeds into the film?
Alors, je dirais que la musique, c'est le langage commun dans le film, c'est le langage commun des personnages et principalement des deux frères. Et je dirais c'est aussi un langage qui permet aux sentiments de s'exprimer avec beaucoup de pudeur. C'est une relation qui a du mal à s'instaurer entre les deux frères au début. Et grâce à la musique, il y a un langage commun qui permet justement de faire la rencontre sans parole. On voit que l'affection, l'amour se construit à travers la pratique de la musique. Et les silences, ils sont là pour parfois dramatiques. Ils sont là, ils expriment toujours quelque chose. Mais...
So music is the common language in the film. It's the thing that lets the brothers meet without words, and it's the thing that allows them to develop an affection and a love for each other that's unspoken. And the silences, well, they were for dramatic purpose.
The other thing I love about the film is the tone and the humor. So although you're dealing with, some weighty topics such as illness, such as class, perhaps a sort of fading way of living, a lack of community in our current environment, it's all punctuated with wit and humor and certain levity. Why was that so important to you? And was that all there in the script? Was a lot of that also improvised?
Non, je dirais l'humour a été écrit.
Mm-hmm.
Les scènes d'humour ont été écrites, mais parfois elles ont trouvé plus de... Parfois il y a eu aussi de l'humour qui a été généré simplement par les acteurs, effectivement. Parfois il suffit d'un regard, d'un étonnement, voilà, que ce soit drôle, de façon, comment on dirait, imprévu, que ce soit pas. C'est principalement un comique de situation et c'est en fait la rencontre de deux univers très différents qui ne se comprennent pas forcément, qui n'ont pas les mêmes codes. c'est ça qui génère de situations comiques avec des personnages qui ne sont pas comiques. En fait, là, si vous prenez la première rencontre des deux frères, c'est une situation absolument dramatique et pourtant ça fait rire parce que c'est le choc des deux, l'incompréhension qui nous fait rire. C'est le quiproquo, voilà, c'est le ressort.
So the humor was absolutely written in the script. Sometimes there were moments on set where humor came through from the actors, but really it's a comedy of situation. So if we take the first scene, for example, where the brothers first meet each other, it's a very dramatic situation, but it's kind of the way in which the brothers are so unfamiliar with each other's social codes makes us laugh. It's a shock and it makes us laugh.
And what incredible performances across the board, but particularly from Benjamin and Pierre. They also, as actors, have very contrasting backgrounds, which I guess perhaps feeds into the characters they play. You know, one perhaps more traditionally trained actor with a musical background, the other not. But you really believe them as brothers, and there's an authenticity to their relationship. How did you cast them, and what was it like working with them?
En fait, comme Pierre, je l'avais choisi avant, au départ. Déjà, dès l'écriture, on avait pensé à Pierre. Il a fallu trouver effectivement son frère, et ce qui était évidemment un choix très très délicat. J'ai pensé à Benjamin parce que effectivement, Pierre amène déjà tout son background, effectivement, toute sa vie, son éducation, ce qu'il est. Et Benjamin, c'est la même chose. Lui, il amène, voilà, un garçon qui a une éducation plutôt bourgeoise, qui est à la Comédie Française, au théâtre, très talentueux, très très brillant. Il parle très facilement. Il est voilà. Alors que Pierre, c'est quelqu'un qui se tait beaucoup. C'est pas un bavard. Voilà, ils étaient déjà proches des personnages et ils se sont tout de suite entendus. Et je pense que le lien fraternel, c'est eux qui arrivent à le faire, vraiment à nous faire croire au lien fraternel, parce qu'ils se sont très bien entendus sur le tournage et ils avaient un lien quasi fraternel en tant qu'acteurs.
So Pierre was already chosen when we were writing the script. We had him in mind, and effectively, yes, we had to find his brother. And just as Pierre has his own social background that informed the writing of the script and informed his character, so did Benjamin. So Benjamin had a very much more classical background in acting. He had trained at the Comédie Française. All of these things that he had in his background informed the way that he incarnated the character, but something that was very different about Pierre and that made him similar to his character is that he's not very chatty in real life, whereas Benjamin is very eloquent. But having said that, when they met on the set, or when they first met, they got along super well, and they actually developed a bond that was quasi fraternal. They were already brothers, and I think that's what makes it so convincing, is the relationship between them, between the actors.
And in terms of the impact of the film, obviously it's been so incredibly received in France, obviously getting a release here. Has it surprised you how much it's resonated with people? What has that meant to you, that, both the comedy and the drama and the emotional core of it has really hit home with people?
Alors, je savais que le film avait un potentiel public important, parce qu'on me l'avait dit, parce que j'avais eu déjà l'accueil qui avait été fait par le public. Dans mes rêves, je n'allais pas rêver jusqu'à plus de 2,5 millions d'entrées, bien sûr. Alors, j'espère que je vais être surpris par la carrière en Angleterre. Je pense qu'il a tout pour réussir en Angleterre.
We already had a great reception in Cannes, so I expected that it had potential to appeal to a grand public, but I wouldn't have dreamed that it would go this far. And I think that I can't say anything about the UK yet, but I think it has everything that it needs to succeed here. And I hope that it does succeed.
And you've spoken about kind of maybe walking this tightrope between kind of comedy and drama, more like auteur cinema and more popular cinema. Do you feel like perhaps you got the magic formula with this film?
Alors, je ne sais pas. Moi, je me suis pas dit je vais faire un mélange dans un film, mais je pense que effectivement, c'est ce qu'on dit beaucoup, c'est que c'est un film qui réconcilie le cinéma d'auteur et la comédie populaire. Donc, je m'en réjouis parce qu'effectivement, les critiques ont été, je dirais, excellentes, aussi bien dans la presse, je dirais, plus intellectuelle et cinéphile que dans la presse plus généraliste. Donc, je m'en réjouis parce que moi, mon but, c'est d'amener beaucoup de gens au cinéma pour leur proposer un cinéma exigeant qu'ils n'ont pas forcément l'habitude de voir.
Yeah, I don't know if it is that I don't know if I've deliberately made something that mixes these two things, but effectively that is what people have said about it, and it has performed as well for kind of the more intellectual press in France as it has the more kind of general press. But what I really wanted to do was to take these two worlds and align them so that I would get people to come to the cinema and enjoy.
It kind of recalled movies perhaps like The Full Monty, where it's sort of a feel-good film without ever being too saccharine. And as we said at the beginning, you are touching on some, important issues, some social commentary there. But it's done in such a way that actually feels quite inspiring and makes us perhaps want to reach out to loved ones, to have that sense of community, to have those connections. So is that what you kind of hope people go out the cinema feeling?
On dit souvent que c'est un feel-good movie et je me méfie de ce terme parce que c'est souvent justement un film qui fait du bien et voilà et dont on se souvient pas. Et comme un petit pansement, je pense que c'est un film profond, c'est un film qui est dur aussi et c'est un film qui fait du bien. C'est pas si courant au cinéma de sortir de la salle en disant ça m'a fait du bien et surtout c'est un film, je crois, qui marque les gens dans la durée. C'est-à-dire que les gens s'en souviennent longtemps après. Et voilà, pour moi, c'est ça la réussite du film.
So for me, this is the success of the film, is having this balance between people coming out of the cinema and feeling good, but it not being too saccharine. And people have described it as a feel-good movie, which I'm not so sure about as a term, because I do think it has more profundity than that. And I think it has a lingering effect on people when they come out of the cinema. It's something that they think about for days and days. And I think that's the real success of the film for me.
100%. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with me. Like I said at the beginning, I absolutely loved it. And I can't wait for everyone else to see it here.